Hello everyone, it is Dylan from Yu-Gi-Oh! Everything back with another video. This time I am joined once again by Rarity Fangirl. If you want to introduce yourself, Rarity, even though I'm sure everyone knows who you are at this point.
Yes, the manga expert is back for round 2 of these reviews. Woo! Oh, this one's a good one, man. I am excited to talk about it.
Yeah, it's going to be good. It is Scale 15 of Yu-Gi-Oh! Arc 5. This has now become a monthly thing on my channel where me, and for probably most of the time Rarity as well, will be joining me. She knows obviously a lot about the manga. She dubs the manga on her channel. And we also have a fun questionnaire kind of thing that we're going to do if you want to explain that, Rarity, at the end of this video.
Oh, yeah, so basically this was my idea. I thought it'd be interesting to ask you all a question for the audience about either, it doesn't have to be related to this chapter specifically, just a question about the manga in general, and then at the beginning of the next review, we'll kind of like talk about some of the responses that we heard and just see what you guys like to think, and we'll be answering this question at the end of this video as well, so you guys kind of have an idea of what answers could be like.
Exactly. So I hope you guys stay tuned for the end of this to give your feedback, and give your feedback on what you thought of the scale as a whole, and then that question in particular. So, Scale 15, I'll do what I do with my Arc 5 episode reviews. I'll give a quick synopsis of the overall plot. So it starts with Yugioh vs. Reiji. It's the first time we're about to see Reiji duel in the manga, which was really cool. I was very excited for it. And he's dueling Yuya. And we know in the anime, Yuya has really, yes, he technically beat Reiji, but he's had his issues against Reiji. He lost to him in episode 50-51 in what I thought was a really magnificent duel. And then, you know, most likely would have lost him earlier in the show, but Reiji had to leave because one of his security officers was carded. So this scale takes place with that duel, and that duel was already extremely hyped up. Yuya, right off the bat, Pendulum summons 3 monsters, Card Garden, I believe. He has 3 of them, and they each have 1,000 defense points, but because of their effects, their defense points are added up together, so he immediately Pendulum summons 3 monsters with 3,000 defense points, and he basically says something like, you know, Reiji's like, oh, you're already building a pretty impressive wall, and Yuya's like, yeah, well, when I'm dueling you, you know, I'm not taking any chances. So Yuya basically saying out of respect, he knows how good of a duelist Reiji are. We know they are both from the future, which is confusing in its own regard, but obviously Yuya knows that Reiji is a very, very capable duelist, and then we get the flashback before Reiji's turn begins. In fact, this duel, we see Yuya take his turn, we see the flashback, then Reiji takes his turn, and that's the entire scale. So, the duel wasn't really shown too much, but the flashback gives us loads of information. It's basically Reiji just saying, if it wasn't for Yugioh, if it wasn't for your father, Yuya, my father, Leo Akaba, would still be alive. We learn that Yugioh and Reiji were working on a bunch of projects, similar to what was happening in the anime.
Yugioh and Leo, not Reiji.
Yugioh and Leo, yes, thank you, Rarity. Sorry about that. Yugioh and Leo. Sometimes my words trip me up. And there were a few things that we'll get more into detail, and I'm sure Rarity is raring to go about that, more into detail about the dialogue, because this was a very plot-heavy scale. The thing to me that was interesting is that Genesis Omega Dragon was formed from the voids between the dimensions. Genesis Omega Dragon came out, destroyed the entire future. We also know to some extent that Yuya used Genesis Omega Dragon. Yuya doesn't remember using it at all, but we know he used it. So did Yuya destroy this world by using God? That's interesting, especially because he kind of destroyed the world in the anime too. So either way you look at it, Yuya is just a destructive main protagonist. Something else that was extremely interesting in this flashback is that we learn Leo Akaba and Yugioh Sakaki created Pendulum Summoning. This is a question that has been burning at so many people, including myself, in the anime. Where did Pendulum Summoning come from? The manga, it came from Leo and Yugioh. Obviously, there's probably not really a correlation between the anime and the manga in terms of every little detail, but I think that was extremely interesting that we know.
Well, Yugioh has pendulum cards in the anime because we saw in 126 that he summoned these birds.
Right,
those were cards. Those are pendulum cards because those were in the Yuya structure deck, which I feel like some of those cards Yugioh will be using if he duels. Come on, Yugioh, you need to duel. Come on, don't just sit there.
Well, he dueled Dennis. That was a really good duel.
What, for 5 seconds?
I know, I'm kidding. But no, hopefully he does duel soon. I don't know who he's going to... Well, that's an anime. I'm not going to try to get into that, but who knows what's going to happen with Yugioh. But yes, maybe Yugioh did create Pendulum Summoning. We know he created it with Leo in the manga. Maybe that's a big sign of how it was created in the anime. Who really knows? But anyway, there's more that was in that flashback that we'll get more into. I'm sure Rarity has a lot more facts there. She's a lot more fact-oriented than I am, and a lot more detail-oriented, I should say. But anyway, we go back to the duel, and Reiji summons a new DDD monster. DDD, All-Seeing King Zero Maxwell. Whether that will be the actual translation, we don't really know, but it's a new DDD monster. It looked really cool, and I believe it was level 7, 2,800 attack points, 2,500 defense points, and he uses one of his pendulum monsters to make all of Yuya's card gardeners merge, and they all gained their defense points. So now Yuya has a monster with 9,000 defense points on his field, and you're like, wow, that's probably one of the most defense points we've ever seen any monster have. Of course, it was an effect that made it that high of a defense points, but still 9,000 defense points is pretty massive. Reiji attacks, and because of his monster effect, the attack points go to 0. He attacks. Yuya's life points go from 4,000 to 1,200, and that's the entire scale. And I think it's hilarious that Yuya does a great job of building a wall. Reiji Akaba, in one turn, breaks down Yuya's 3,000 defense points monsters and inflicts 2,800 points of damage. That's just how good of a duelist Reiji Akaba is. It really is just incredible. That's how the duel ends. My general impressions, I liked the scale, I enjoyed the plot. The one criticism I have is that I really thought we were going to see more of this duel. I would have liked to see more of this duel, especially because it's not an action duel. So me and Rarity were just talking before, and Rarity brought up a good point, how you don't have to really waste pages looking for action cards. So I thought this was going to be a lot more action-oriented. There was going to be a lot more turns. Yuya did one turn, and it was relatively extremely quick, his turn. And then Reiji took a turn. That was a little longer, but that was it. So the thing is, with scale 16, maybe even it'll drip into scale 17, I think that the focus is going to be a lot more on this duel, so I can understand that. But that's a criticism that I had. But Rarity, what were your impressions of this scale, and what were some things that you noticed that are pretty important to the relevance of the manga?
Personally, at least this is the way that I usually, think of things. I'm usually more of a fan when Yugioh, what they can do when they don't focus on dueling, because some of my favorite episodes of any Yu-Gi-Oh show are the ones where they don't duel. Not to saying I hate dueling or anything. I love dueling. I'm not saying I don't hate it, but I like to see what an anime that's based on a gimmick can do without that gimmick.
That's
see
fair.
what they do, the character interaction, because I really like that. So this chapter I really liked, but not as much as last time, because I'm kind of a little disappointed that we didn't see or any hints of Yugioh, Yuto, or Yuri. I mean, I love my U-boys, you know that. So of course I'm kind of disappointed when they're not here, but I guess we're gonna see them probably later, is my thing. Also, we wasted at least 2 pages of, well, not wasted, I should say. Well, okay, Yusu's page, I think that could have been skipped. The Shingo and Shun one, I think that's fair, because, but with all this evidence that we have these two groups, I could say, that are coming to find Yuya and Reiji, either they're going to pull them back or help them after this duel is over, or they're gonna get interrupted. We also have Ren and Eve, which we saw none of them in this chapter, which I'm kind of surprised. I mean, there's only 2 turns of the duel, so it's not but I feel like one of them could have commented on what Reiji was saying. I feel like one of them could have commented or just done something. So that was a little something disappointed, was the wasted page time and just no Ren and Eve, none of the U-boys or anything like that. But something really, really nice that I loved is just the way the manga is drawn. Last time I thought I was talking about the design details of Yuya and how I love his cape, or hood I should say, and I still love it to death. It's still a great design choice. But the way that Yuya is drawn, it just speaks confidence. Which is something Yuya's self-confidence in his abilities has been something he's been struggling with in the anime since the beginning. Mm-hmm. And I love that here, you can just, with every single, just his normal, happy expression, you can tell he's confident. You can tell that he is willing, not willing, I should say, what am I saying? He is just, he believes in himself, and I really like that about him. He just baits his confidence. I love there's this one page in particular, right after he summons the Gardenas, he's fangirling that he winks at Reiji, and Reiji's just super serious putting up his glasses. I think that's adorable. I love Manga Yuya for his playful side. I love that about him so much. But I also really like, there's this one scene, I believe it's when Yuya is saying something about about Genesis Omega Dragon, and basically I think he's saying something around the lines of, oh, I didn't really get to know what it did because my father never got to tell me where it came from, because Reiji was surprised that Yuya didn't know where it came from. In the first panel, you just don't see his eyes, and you see him looking down, and then when you see him, you see, like, it's like half smiling. He's trying to put on a brave face, you know. He probably doesn't want to show any weakness about Reiji. Just, you can see how heartbroken he is. I figure he's been separated from his dad for, like, probably a few months, so it hasn't been that long. But you can still feel he probably doesn't know what happened to his father. And he's just really unsure about it and feels probably bad that what happened. I assume he feels bad. I mean, Yuya's a good guy, so I assume he's not, like, thrilled that his father killed Reiji's dad. Well, technically, World Illusion killed Reiji. Killed Leo, excuse me. He killed. Technically, that's what we learned. So that was interesting. Also, another thing that I liked was Yugioh was a scientist originally. That was kind of surprising. Like, we were getting leaks, and I'm like, Yugioh, what are you wearing? What are you wearing, Yugioh? Like, where's your entertainment? And I like that, another thing, Yugioh I've come to respect. In the anime, as well as the manga, I've come to respect him a lot these last few times that we've seen him. You know, with Leo saying, like, get the kids out of this in a 127? I think? 127? Yeah, that's 127. That was last episode. Because he was like, get the kids out of this. This is between you and me. And in this one, he's like, well, I know Solid Vision's developing really fast, and I don't want it to be used as a symbol for war. I want it to be used as a symbol of good. That's why he's saying bringing that through entertainment dueling, which I really like that. I think that is really, really admirable. Considering this technology, he says it's going to change the world, and I want to make it in a positive direction. I really do enjoy that. So, Yugioh, you have gained my respect. I just want to see you do more stuff so I can keep respecting you really, really well. The duel itself, it's weird that Reiji's deities look like aliens. They look so weird.
I thought they looked pretty cool, though. I thought they looked pretty cool.
They do look cool. Someone was saying, I think, on New Art Cradle, how they look kind of a mix between Reiji and Reira, because they have, like, the little camera-looking thing, I think, on one of them. Even if that was the Pendulum Monster or the Maxwell, I wasn't exactly sure. But I thought that was cool. Like, they look like kind of like camera kind of thing, so that's kind of cool. Hence a Reira, I guess. So that was cool. And I want to get your opinion on this, Dylan. The word zero is said frequently throughout the end of this chapter. Reiji's like, my existence is to bring you to zero, Yuya. And he says, your entertainment means, like, zero, nothing to me. And it's interesting because in the anime, we have Revival Zero, which was the revival of Rei.
Right.
So what do you think this zero means? I mean, to me, I'm thinking it looks like Reiji doesn't want to kill Yuya, from what I can tell. I mean, he's mad, but I don't think he wants to kill him. I honestly can't tell at this point. But maybe it's bring it back to zero, which is back to its starting point, about before this ever happened. Maybe he maybe this could relate to what the Yus are doing. If Yuya really destroyed the world in the future, could the Yus be destroying his memories to stop that? To not let Yuya remember that he destroyed the world and probably killed a lot of people? Could that be what the Yus are doing? And that's why they have to defeat his childhood? So maybe, like, Reiji and the Yus have the same goal, in a way, if what I say about Zero is true. What do you think about that, Dylan?
Yeah, you know, it's very confusing. Zero, in the anime, you have Revival Zero, which, as you just said, is the revival for Rei. It's almost like each of the U-boys and the Bracelet Girls in the anime have code names, or maybe Yuzu's code name is like 1, and Serena's is 2, and Ruri's is 3, and Rin is 4, and 0 is the original form. So if you use that logic, which is the logic that I would use in this case, maybe there is, not necessarily Zark, but maybe there is another character that appears when all 4 U-boys are together, or are all merged, similar to in the anime. But I with the Bracelet Girls, but I don't really know if that's the case.
I'm gonna say no Zark or no.
Yeah,
Rai.
no. I don't think it would be Zark either. I don't know if it would be a different character, because then you also have to think, where do Ren and Eve fit into all this? Is maybe Ren Zark in the manga? You know what I mean?
Yeah. I was thinking that because I'm like,
it's possible, right?
But he's just a synchro guy, though. That's my only negative.
But
about this.
all we know is that he's a synchro. He could use other monsters.
That is true, but he also knew a lot about Yugioh. And he was concerned about Yugioh.
Exactly. So that's what I'm maybe starting to lean towards.
But then Eve could be manga version of Rei, which might, Yuzu being the villain theory might be right. Oh my gosh, Rarity's theory is correct. Yay!
Yeah,
I might be
congrats.
right. Yeah, I might be right. I don't know. So I think that's really interesting. But I really wish the Yus were in this chapter. Come on. I love them. I wish they were here, but we're probably gonna see them coming up. Oh, also, just a funny note. When Reiji's about to attack the Cardian monster, there's a panel of, this is a funny shot, where, like, you see, like, the retinal of him firing Yuya, and Yuya's just, like, covering his hand, he has a sweat drop. It's, like, the most funny panel. I love it. It looks, his eyes are wide, like, what are you doing? He's like, I'm gonna kill you. Also, another thing that I think is interesting back to the art department is just how angry Reiji is drawn. He, like, looks so unnatural to, like, what we see in the anime, because Reiji's usually a calm and collected guy. We've never really seen him yell that much. But here, he's going full on Yuya right from the start. Like, as Dylan said at the beginning, like, he brought Yuya down, his incredible defense, and brought it down to 1200 in the first turn. His first turn. Not so, I mean, we know Reiji's a competent duelist, we know that, but he's just going ruthless.
Yeah,
So
I mean, it's a fine line with a guy like Reiji Akiba, because he is an incredible duelist, and, even if he's not as vicious as he is maybe in this manga, he's probably still going to do a move like that, because his goal is to win the duel. But at the same time, I completely understand where you're coming from. He is drawn a lot more, he doesn't, but then again, in the anime, he's very stern too, so he's stern, but he's a lot more calmer and collected in the anime. So I see what you're saying there, But overall, if you were to rate this scale 1 to 10, what are you rating it?
I'm gonna give it, like, between a 7 and an 8 for right now.
Yeah,
because,
I literally was gonna say 7.5. So.
Yeah, yeah, that's what I was saying. Also, the virtual dimension. That's kind of interesting that Solid World's, like, creating its own dimension kind of thing. Maybe we'll go there, maybe we won't. Also, the thing about just Genesis Omega Dragon, we know that Adam's Factor gives life to that card, but that doesn't exactly mean that you have to use it. So, but it's interesting that Yuya did use that card. I figured he did. I figured that, but is Genesis Omega Dragon, what kind of monster is it? Same thing, we can say about what the Dragon Zark is. We don't know what monster
it's the same
card.
concept,
But,
seems.
same, like, what card, but I kind of like, plus this, the Bible imagery, there's so many more questions now, but I like I said, like, last chapter, I like this. Also, where did the pendulum come from? Was that created by Solid Vision? Is the pendulum, was that just how they made Pendulum Summoning? Because the pendulum in the manga is only seen during the Pendulum Summoning, but it's never glowed or anything. So maybe it is just a symbol or something in the manga. It doesn't really do anything. I mean, but we honestly know, because Reiji, like, looked pretty normal, or, like, nothing spectacular happened when he, was pendulum summoning. Also, like, the page where the world was being destroyed, like, that big accident, it reminded me of, Zero Reverse.
Yes.
From 5Ds.
Yes. Oh, yeah.
So this is kind of a similar concept to that, the world, like, there's even the buttons, you can see Leo, them freaking out, like, when it's about to happen. And we got another good glimpse of the good future, which I'm looking at the picture, like, when it explodes, it looks a lot like just Miami City futuristic. So, I mean, this is the past, the future,
Which
though.
it very well could be. Yeah, very well
which
could
very
be.
well. I still want to just know more about, this, of course. And how do the other U-boys play into this? Is this all Yuya? Does Reiji have a vendetta against the other three? I mean, he says, your father, Yuya. He doesn't say anything about the other three. I just would love to see what happens if one of them intervenes. To see what his reaction is. He's probably like, get back here, Yuya, you coward, or something. Probably. I could see, like, maybe Yuya's about to lose. One of the other three come in. I don't know who would that be. I'd say Yuto, because I feel like he's the leader of the U-boys in the manga. That's just me, because he seems to be the one keeping everyone together, from what I can tell. Plus, he's been with Yuya the most, from what we've seen. Him taking Yuya out, and then maybe right before that happens, then Shin and Shingo and Shun show up. And then they, like, help Reiji and talk about him to that. But it's just also interesting. So overall, a very, very interesting chapter. The art direction was great. The duel could have been a little better. But, I mean, this is the beginning of this duel. I could see this going on for at least 3 chapters, considering the Sora versus Yuya duel went on that long, and so did Ren versus Yugioh. So I could totally see it going that long. But yeah, that's my thoughts. I can't wait for next month. I can't wait to see more of this duel, more backstory. Please, manga, please give us backstory on the U-boys. Come on, I need to see what Yuto and Yuri's backstories are, because Yugo's you could kind of guess. Like, he was a turbo duelist and he won stuff. Like, that's obvious. But what do you do with an academia soldier where academia doesn't exist? And what do you do with a rebel when a war doesn't exist?
Yeah, questions to be answered, because there's definitely a lot of unknowns right now, absolutely.
So yeah, now it's time for my question. Woo! First question, viewer question. So I'm gonna ask this question to you guys, making sure it's clear, and then Dylan and I are going to answer. I'll have Dylan answer first because this is my question. So my question to you all is, what character from the anime, and I'm gonna say no cameo characters for this because they probably won't appear, I don't think there's any chance. What character from the anime that is original to Arc 5 would you like to see in the manga? What role would they play, and why did you pick them? So Dylan, what is your answer?
I've given a lot of thought to this when you told me 5 minutes before we started this review, so I've had a lot of time to think about it. And I'm going to have to go with Dual Chaser 227. No, I'm completely kidding. No, who I'm going to go with is, I'm going to go with Serena. And I think, and the reason I think this, and and a lot of people who do watch me on a regular basis know that I'm a very big advocate for females doing things in Yu-Gi-Oh! I just think that when females are doing things and kind of breaking barriers in the show, I think it just improves the show as a whole. And I am annoyed at the way females have been treated the last 15, 20 years. I think if you have
Same, agree.
Mm-hmm. And I think if you have a character like Serena, it maybe Yuzu will start remembering things about maybe her past, and maybe then all of a sudden she is tied to Eve. And now Yuzu, who has done nothing in the manga, I mean, really been a disappointment. And I understand maybe it's because this is to focus on the U-Boy interaction, and that's understandable. But we have 9 volumes, assumingly. And we're through, I think, 2.5. Probably not even 2.5. We're not even a third of the way.
Yeah, we're through. Volume 2 got released this month, so we are in the beginning of Volume 3.
Right, so we're in the beginning of Volume 3. So we're like 2.25 of the way through. And so we're not even 33% of the way through. So it's done a very good job focusing on the U-Boys. They can take some time to focus on the Bracelet Girls.
Yes,
I really think they can. So I think if you introduce Serena, the other two are pretty much a definite, Ruri and Rin, and I think just Serena would make the most sense, because that's how it was in the anime. I guess keep it based on the anime, even though if they introduced any of those 3 girls, I'd be happy.
Yeah,
I think it would
they have changed things up. I mean, I remember in the Zexal manga, Shark Rio didn't exist, and there was this new character named Luna, which I believe that was her name. I haven't read the Zexal manga in a while, so I honestly don't remember. But yeah,
I'm reading it right now. Yeah, I'm reading it right now.
I could see them changing things like that as well. But I think that if Eve is the manga version of Rei, it makes sense because we just know that Reiji is the only kid, assuming, because there's no Himika, no Rei is mentioned, and no Reira, so
exactly.
Yeah.
So that's my answer. What about you, Rarity?
I am answering with of my top 10 favorite characters, the only one who hasn't shown up yet, and that is Dennis Macfield. I think because if I know a little bit about the metagame, and I know that a popular deck is Yuya's Performapals, which is the English name for Endermates, and Dennis's Performages, or Performage as the dub pronounces it. That's kind of a weird pronunciation, but whatever. I think he would fit really well, get more fusion and Xyz people in there, because I feel like those two, I mean, Pendulum Summoning is a pretty big thing, but I feel like, well, yeah, I think those would be nice just to put in there as well. There's more fusion people, because Sora is kind of out of the picture. And I feel like Dennis could be working with Yugioh. That would be kind of like his little agent kind of thing, because he was Yugioh's apprentice in the anime, technically. So that would be really cool to see him in a different role, not necessarily playing a villainous role. Because I really liked Dennis when he was kind of, in the Synchro arc, he was, being a fun, supportive character. I loved him in that. That's where I fell in love with him as a character, so I think that would be interesting. Also, as another entertainment duelist, someone who looked up to Yugioh. Maybe he helps Yuya in a jam, saying, oh, your father's alive, he's doing this, and kind of assist him in a jam. Or they could go the more obvious route and have him work for Eve. But I think with Sora there, I honestly can't see that. I think that's a little too samey to the anime kind of thing. Sora, I kind of like that he was with Reiji at first, then he turned. And that's kind of similar to the anime, but that's just my opinion. But I would love to see Dennis. I think he is a wonderful character, and I was really disappointed when he got killed off. I rather would have had any of the cameo characters killed off first before Dennis. I would love him to be where Kaito and Edo are in the anime. That is an anime rant. But I feel like Dennis could fit really well in this, especially because entertainment dueling is a symbol of peace, the way it is in the manga. I feel like just having another entertainment duelist that isn't Yugioh and isn't Yuya would just bring a lot more variety. I think it would just overall be better. But that's just me.
Yeah, well, that's a very good character to bring into the manga. It's very good reasoning for the character, and I would love to hear, me and Rarity would both love to hear from you guys, the community, what you thought of this scale. I will link the scale down below. We're recording this Saturday, by the way. We always record this pretty much once the Raw comes out, but I won't release it until the actual English version comes out.
By the way, thank you, DMC, for the
Yes,
translation.
thank you.
Also linking us the Raw as well. That is very much appreciated. We really love when you get to do that. And the official English version will be out Monday, so you all get to see it in the actual HD, scans with the translation. I think the chapter's name, which we didn't say at the beginning, I think it has Zero is in the title for the chapter. I'm not exactly sure about the name, but I know the chapter's name has Zero in it, so more of that Zero imagery. And I just can't wait to see how things go next month. It's just going to be really intense. Hopefully we won't see 2 more Yugioh and Leo flashback. I think we saw plenty. I wouldn't mind seeing a flashback with Yugioh as a kid and Reiji as a kid. I would love to see that, because that would be interesting to see what they did and more hints about their backstory. But I've said enough, I think, for now.
Yeah, well, we love listening to you, Rarity. We really do. But no, the flashbacks, yeah, we'll see what happens. I just hope next scale we see more of the duel. We see a few more turns. That's just what I'm hoping for. But it'll be very, very interesting. So you guys, thank you so much for watching. Again, I will link that. And thank you to DMC for doing all the translations and doing everything that you do for the community. It really is much appreciated by everyone. I will link in the description the scale if you want to read it for yourself. And that pretty much sums it up. Comment your thoughts down below. I hope you enjoyed watching. Have a great day.